r/NoSleep. Posted by you/Avatarofhorror. I fear I was a security guard for the devil. There's evil in this world, I'm sure of that now more than ever. I grew up in a strict Roman Catholic household, and was taught by nuns as early as I can recall that the devil was out there and responsible, and I needed to be strong to fight it off. After recent events, I'm not sure that begins to describe that struggle. After serving in the army, I got my pension and got hooked up by a friend with a security company called Cerberus. The company had a bit of a shady reputation, but it was easy money, mostly just sitting at a desk at corporate sites and wandering hallways at night. My boss called me a month ago and asked if I might be interested in providing security for a very special site. When he told me how much they were offering for the role, I damn near fell out of my chair. This was retire level money. After seeing dollar signs in my eyes like a children's cartoon, so I blurted out yes. My boss stated this would be a remote assignment and I would have to stay at the location for 3 months. That was beyond out of the ordinary, but for the pay, hey, I was willing to do whatever. Driving the next day, all I could focus on were the future zeros in my bank account. I was a poor kid who joined the military to pay for college, and this kind of money would change my life. After hours diving into increasingly mountainous terrain deep in the Appalachian, I was caught by surprise when the GPS said I had arrived. Ahead of me was a thick wrought iron gate and a buzzer. I got out of the car and hit the buzzer, which crackled with static. "Hello?" I called, to no response. "I'm here from Cerberus Security," as more static followed. With a strange sound of gear, the large gate flipped open and I got back in my car to drive in. Even here in the mountains, I was expecting some sort of corporate building, but I was not prepared to drive forward and see a large white neoclassical building sitting behind rows of trees shedding their leaves in the autumn weather. I drove forward, stopping in front of the entryway, which was flanked by 2 large columns. Parked there was a black car and a man in a black suit waiting for me. "So you're the new person?" the man in the black suit called out to me as I got out of the car. I walked over with my hand extended, but the man did not reciprocate. Yes, showing my security badge. The man in the black suit looked me up and down, and I felt like I was back in basic getting inspected by the sergeant. After a moment, he nodded and motioned for me to follow him, ascending up the stairs to the large wooden double doors. "Well, I hope your constitution lives up to the recommendation. Come on." I didn't get any details of this job, as I trailed off as the suited man walked ahead of me, seemingly happy to ignore me walking further inside. As we walked in, the building was dark wood and came to a grand staircase with rooms and halls branching from the main foyer. I stopped for a moment staring at the place. It was beautiful, but there was something just off that I couldn't put my finger on. I chalked it up to old military paranoia and hustled to catch up with the man in the suit. He motioned me over to a room off the main hall and gestured for me to enter. "Here's the security station where you'll be working." I walked over to the security desk. There was a dozen monitors of various rooms and hallways. Nearby was a bed and what looked like a fridge and small kitchen. "So what does a remote place like this need round-the-clock security for?" I asked. "This job is for a very important client. I can't give you any more details. But good news for you, your job is just to formally watch the place at night," the suited man responded. He pointed to the kitchen area. "This place is fully stocked food-wise for your term here, so settle in. You can patrol the first floor here. If a door is locked, just leave it alone. The second floor isn't off limits, but it's just bedrooms, so no sleeping up there." He paused. "You are not allowed under any circumstances into any of the locked doors here. Failure to comply with that last requirement will mean immediate termination." "What if there's an issue I need to get to?" "There won't be," he said in a tone that broached no disagreement. "There's a landline, as your cell phone won't get shit out here if there's any problems," he continued, clearly trying to change the subject. "I feel like I'm a house caretaker, not a security guard," I commented, hoping he would take the bait and give me some answers. "Your only job here is not to let anything in or out for the term. It can be a bit isolating, so if you can't handle it, call and we'll relieve you, but your pay will be drastically prorated. The longer you stay, the more you get up to the agreed upon amount." "What do you mean, let anything out?" I asked, my head slightly cocked as if I would miss that comment. The man in the suit waved a hand of dismissal, turn of phrase. "Just stick to the instructions I gave and you'll enjoy a nice fat paycheck at the end of this. There's more details in a packet left on your desk there. Also remember, the security office is the safest place here." He began to head to the exit briskly as I followed after. This was now officially the strangest freaking job I'd ever had, and if you've ever served, you'd know exactly how hard that is to top. I tried calling out to the man, but he got in his car and drove off, and I watched him pull away in a hurry. The first few days at the place were uneventful. I unpacked and settled in, trying to make a routine to keep life ordered. Sleeping in the day and working at night was second nature at this point. I had gone through the instructions that were left, which gave details about everything from what keys went to what and how to adjust the thermostat. The first floor was as grandiose and ornate as it was mundane. The place seemed like some old estate, but who the hell would want to build it way up in the middle of nowhere, left me shrugging my shoulders. After the first week I wasn't sleeping well. I did 2 tours in Iraq and I kept having memories of the bad shit that went down there. The dream ended with me surrounded by dead bodies, my squad mates, enemies, civilians, everyone around me was massacred with me at the center of it all. My alarm went off to start the night shift and I woke up in a cold sweat. Grabbing a coffee and shaking off the dream, I sat down at the security monitors as I had for the last few days. A whole load of nothing as usual. I took another swig of coffee when something caught my eye on the monitor in the main hall. It was a dark movement across the screen and I blinked a few times to make sure, but nothing was there. I walked out of the security room to the foyer to look around, but nothing was present, but there was a door open. It was the only door on the first floor that was locked when I got here and just figured it was some supply closest or similar. Trudging over, the door was agape and I poked my head in expecting to find someone, but it was just some sort of study or personal library. I figured rich eccentric types just had places like this. I was turning about to close the door when I saw a notebook on the desk. If you ask me even now why I went and looked, I don't know, but there was something about it that called to me. It was a simple thing in a room full of books, but perhaps sitting alone on the desk is why it stood out. The small emblem of Cerberus Security was emblazoned on its front. I picked it up and opened a random page and was a bit disappointed. It was just gibberish. It was written over and over again, so I remember it, though even now I don't know what it means. GUR6GUTNGR NEEF. I flipped to the first page and that was thankfully legible. It was a log. The notations were all time and location in the house, like it was tracking something. Not knowing what any of it meant, I grabbed the book and went back to the security office. I kept on the lookout that night, but no other blackness or strange things occurred. Well, until I fell asleep. Again the dream came. I was alone surrounded by dead bodies. I called out for help, for anyone to save me from the sight, and a voice came back, "Release me." The buzzing of the alarm woke me as sweat drenched my bed as my breathing was heavy. I read the book again after I got up. From the dates and locations it slowly got less legible and then was the same thing over and over again before it stopped. The place was definitely getting on my nerves, but the fortune in my future put doubts aside. I won't forget it until the day I leave this earth. As that night at 6:12 p.m. a black shadow darted across the monitor in the main entry. Rushing out of the security room, I caught a glimpse of darkness running down one of the halls and chased after. I turned the corner and there was nothing except the seemingly endless corridor. What the fuck was that? I called out, half expecting a response. I walked down the hallway with each step feeling like it was a mile in length. When I reached the end there was a wooden door like the rest, but it had no door handle. My palm was placed on the door before I even really thought about what I was doing. There was what I can only describe as an energy to it, a life. My ear was on the door next, like I was a child listening to my parents. There was a throbbing sound, like a heartbeat, and I shot backwards, stumbling and falling. Fuck this. I called out and rushed back to the security office and grabbed the landline. I smashed the keys listed next to the phone as the dialed tone as a deep voice answered. "Are you okay? What in the hell is this place? What am I doing here?" A silence was on the other end. "Are you okay?" My breathing was returning to normal. "Yes, no, I don't know. There's some strange shit here. I want out." More silence greeting me. "Remember, if you leave you will not receive full payment. I don't know what freaky shit is going on up here, but it's not worth it. Your pay will be doubled if you complete this assignment." The response was quick, as if it was expected. I froze. That was a sum of money I couldn't even comprehend. "Double?" "Yes, but you must complete your term there." "What is here that is worth that much money? What am I providing security for?" Silence again. "Are you agreeing to stay?" I swore about a dozen times before responding, "Fine, yes, but if this shit gets more crazy I am out of here no matter the money." Another long pause. "You didn't go into any of the locked rooms, did you?" I thought back to the study and the handle store. "No." "Good. Just remember, the security office is the safest place in the building." The other end of the phone hung up. I stood in a sea of dead bodies and look at the sun above. In shock I see it turn to a sickly black eclipse. The cloudless sky above begins to rain, but it is thick and viscous. It is blood that turns me and the ground crimson. I scream. From the pile of corpses around me there rigged his hands grabbed at me, pulling me into their depths. I struggle to no success. I stare at the faces of the dead pulling at me, their mouths moved unnaturally, their words impossibly coming together in a rising sound. "Release me." I shot up in bed, my breathing was labored. I grabbed the crucifix around my neck attempting to find some comfort. The dreams were getting worse every night. I dreaded sleep and the exhaustion was getting to me. I had confined myself to the security room. I figured if this was all in my head, then there wasn't a need for me to leave, and if I wasn't crazy, well, best to stay in the area that monitored everything. I kept going back to the logbook. Was it tracking the same thing I saw too? I feared this was the last security guard's work. I feared what that meant for me. The hour was late and on the monitor for the foyer a black shadow crossed the screen. I closed my eyes. It's just in your head, it's just in your head, it's not real. Opening them back up like a child hiding from the monster under their bed, the monitor was clear and I breathed a sigh of relief. The dozen monitors then blinked in unison as the feeds cut to static. No, 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 come on you piece of shit, I called out in anger, hitting the side of screens as if that would somehow fix it. A guttural and bestial cry was heard outside the security office as I froze. It was as if the house itself was groaning in anguish. Swearing at myself, I opened the door to the security room and poked my head out cautiously. The lights in the hallway were off, which should not have been the case. I've left all the lights on since I got here. Another groaning sound and my skin crawled. I rushed back to the security room and grabbed the landline, but there was no dial tone. I threw the phone down and grabbed my flashlight. Illuminating the dark hallways, I raced to the main doors. I was done with this shit. Over and over again I pushed, pulled, and slammed into the doors, but they stood uncaring of my struggles. I remember there was an electronic lock on the door, but with no power they seemed sealed. I would need to find a breaker or something to reset the system. I headed back to the security office, though it felt like I was trudging in mud through the darkness to get there. A tingle on the neck and I snapped around to find only my flashlight's beam. A whisper from back where I had come from helped me and I ran as fast as possible. Inside the normally low-lit room there were symbols glowing on the walls. I'm enough of a man of faith to know what pentagrams looks like, and they were etched again and again on the walls. The sigil burned in shades of orange and crimson and their sight made my senses hurt. I fought through the disorientation to get to the instructions packet. The groaning sounds outside the room seemed to get louder and louder as I searched. Frantically I found the listing for the circuit room and my heart sank. It was at the end of the hallway next to the door with no handle. As I walked through the dark hallway I had a million questions and simultaneously didn't care. All I wanted was to get out of this accursed place. The corridor off the main hallway seemed to stretch for eternity. My flashlight was inexplicably unable to penetrate fully into the darkness ahead. Each door along the hallway I went past appeared warped in shapes, bending at unnatural angles. Whispers in the darkness had my head darting left and right, trying to listen for the source. Voices ranging from dead soldiers I served with to people I'd never know called to me. Save me, release me, free me. Over and over the bewildering cacophony threw me off balance. I stopped and put a hand to the wall to catch myself. It was not a wall though, it was a door with no handles. I fell backwards, falling down as I realized where I was. The door was glowing, its arched frame illuminated. Above the door the image of the black sun from my dreams burned brightly. Let me the fuck out of here. I called out in equal amounts of terror and anger. Release me, a voice called back. A handprint appeared on the door. Let me out. The handprint begged me to put mine up to it. I could feel the power beyond, as if such a thing could quantified. It was pulsating, breathing, with energy. How I knew I could not comprehend, but I knew that if I did, if I placed my hand there, all I could want in this world would be mine. My hand reached out as the imprint on the door beckoned it. With a hair's breadth my hand paused. Something about the sickly black sun above hit me. It hit me as the purest expression of evil and malevolence in the world. All I'd seen in combat, all I'd done, seemed personified in the image. It was greed and temptation, and I recoiled at the last moment. A roar of anger shook the house as my hand pulled away. The glowing door rocked and quaked as I struggled to get to my feet. The entire building seemed to shake with fury. I ran back, trying to find the door to the breaker room. It had to be nearly, or at least I desperately hoped. The hallway bent and stretched and compressed as I ran through, searching for a door. My hand found a handle and I pushed it forward. Inside there was the faintest of illumination, more pentagrams related around the room, burning in unnatural colors. There were stacks of electronics here and I desperately looked for anything that might be a circuit box. A tug on my leg and I looked down to see an inky darkness locked around my ankle. My chin hurt next as I was pulled down and hit the floor. The tendril was pulling me back through the doorway. With every amount of strength I tried to find anything to grip onto and hold myself in the room. A lucky glance to my right and I saw a switch for the main power breaker. The pulling on my leg ripped and tore my skin, but I fought through. The roaring and shaking of the building broke my senses. All I focused on though was that breaker switch. I used my strength to pull myself forward, each movement painful. My hand reached out, it was so close. The building screamed in defiance of my actions. Just another few inches and I woke up. A white-tiled room greeted my eyes as I blinked. I looked down and I was in a hospital bed. Sunlight glistened through the window. I sat up in confusion and a nurse nearby noticed and came to me. "Whoa, easy there," she called to me. I shook my head as pain cascaded through my body. "Where am I?" "St. Michael's Hospital. You were unconscious when you were brought in." "What? Who brought me in?" "Don't know, he was in a dark suit and said you were in some kind of accident up at the Wormwood Manor. That place never has anything good come from it." "What do you mean?" My head was so groggy. "Well, old rumor has it that place was some sort of meeting place for satanic rituals. Bunch of people went missing up there some decades back." "Satanic rituals?" I mumbled out. "I know this might be stressful, so let me get." The doctor turning and leaving me with unanswered questions. A pain on my chest caused me to look under my gown. There, in scar tissue, was a pentagram. I clawed at it as if it would wipe away, but it sat there stinging. I looked at the table next to my bed as I panicked over the find, and there was an envelope. It was all white save for the symbol of the Cerberus security company. I opened it and inside was a short message. "Your payment will be made in full. Your constitution met all expectations. You now have the mark of Cerberus. Guard it well." I looked back out the window, trying to even begin to process what I had experienced. As I did, a shadow was cast from the sky. An eclipse. I got out of bed, pulling wires along with me. I stared up at the dark sun. I stared and my chest hurt. My chest hurt and the symbol there glowed.